Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Mark Boreski. I'll be chairing this session of the Board of Revision. With me on the panel are Marla Billinghurst and Ian Mann. Our assessor today is Jay Flood, and our administrative person is Fran Picotto. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1 through 4 and number 6 on our docket today. Ms. Picotto, could you please affirm the assessor's and the applicant's testimony?
Madam Assessor, please state your full name. Lisa J. Flood. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. Thank you. Applicant, please state your full name.
Julie Squires.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
All right, the first item on our docket then today is at 1225 St. Mary's Road, unit number 11. The applicant is Daring Diva Purses. Ms. Assessor, could you start, please, with your evidence?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. File number is 24-4460. The roll year is 2025. Address unit 11-1225 St. Mary's Road in St. Telmo. The business assessment ID is 56371. Business name Daring Diva Purses. We have a total annual rental value of $93,780 for a total area of 1,841 square feet. We have the base ARV per square foot at $48.25 plus occupancy costs of $4,971 for the total of $93,780. The subject lease information, it is reported as $0. That's because nothing was reported on the income and expense mailer from the property management. My rent comparables, I have 5 of them. They range from $43 to $95. And area wise, they range from 1,101 square feet to 1,704 square feet. And I did try to find newer leases that were available all within the mall. So we are asking to confirm the assessed value at 93,780. Thank you.
Ms. Squires, do you have questions about this information that has been presented by the assessor?
I guess my only question is, I'm curious why you didn't try to find some closer to the unit that I'm in, like proximity wise.
Within the malls, surprisingly, it's hard to find literally within the area, as not all of them are true net rents. I did try to find as close as I could within the vicinity, but again, I believe the one at 1,101 square feet at 95, I think that one potentially would be, no, the one at 115, 1225 at 1,704 at $47, I believe within the mall, it's closer to where you are located in the mall is kind of within the wing of Hudson's Bay, is that correct?
It's in the wing, yes.
The unit 115 is closer to the Hudson's Bay. So
It
that one
is,
would be
it's
the
a
closest.
very visible corner close to the,
Right, so there were a few things that I kept in mind, but yes, that one would be the closest to.
so I guess my other question is, this isn't my first time doing this. Or the stores around me, it's not our first time, their first time either. Is like when we submit our rents as proof in past years, you would not use those in here, those don't factor in at all? What was actually paid in those units?
Those ones are difficult because we use the model driven rents within the malls. And that's based on the market rents that are provided. As from my understanding from yours and the other applicants is that you guys have like special agreements with the owners. So it's not paying the true net rents. So that's why it's difficult for us to. The model doesn't take that into consideration. They do it based on the market rents that are provided by the owners or property managers, not special agreements, because those are not even reported on the income and expense mailers. So we
Okay,
don't
so
even
you don't use what proof we've provided in past.
Not necessarily for that. When the model is created to generate the rents within the model, it's based on the income and expense mailers that we receive. So if you guys have special agreements with the owners, we don't receive that. The owners do not provide that. They provide the rents.
I don't know that they're special agreements, they're still leases, but they're specialty leasing because we're small business.
Yes, it's just you're not paying an actual like net rent. It's based on, you have your overall base rent plus potentially percentage rents, so those fluctuate. So the other ones, you have a set amount.
They have a percentage as well, I believe, but anyways.
Depending,
okay.
the way they report it, we use the ones that are true net rents, not the special, because those ones are hard to gauge, really, what is your rent per square foot?
Any other questions?
That's my questions for that.
All right. Ms. Billinghurst, do you have questions?
No questions.
Mr. Mann, do you have questions?
Yes, with respect to the rent comparables, Ms. Flood, there's a fairly wide range here from $43 to $95. And you talked about net rents, and there was some discussion about percentage leases as well, which I assume this establishment is. In your rent comparables, are those strictly net leases, or are they also part of the percentage lease scheme that is in place in the mall?
They are rents that were provided by the property management for St. Patel. So as far as I know, that they would be reported net rents, but I didn't research beyond that. But I wouldn't have included ones that were percentage if it wasn't specifically specified. So for my rent comparables for all of them, as far as I know, they are true net rents.
Okay, and location obviously makes some difference. I'm looking at the rates again, $43 to $95. And what is it about the Well, you identified unit 115, number 2 in your comparables, as a close in location comparable. What is it about locations that would lead to a higher or lower reported rent per square foot?
Where they are located within the mall, some of them, like Ms. Applicant said, the one at 115 is a corner. It is more visible, but I feel that is the best comparable with size wise and rent per square foot. The other ones that I've included are located in various parts. Some are more hidden than others. The unit 26A is a little bit more secluded. And they're paying 43 at 1,177. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm checking my map. It does depend, like if you're by a busier area, yeah, it'll more traffic, but I feel like the rent and with the comparable, even if it is the corner, I feel it is the best comparable for this one.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't have anything else.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question or two that are sort of background and general, largely for the sake of some of the other people who may be listening into this that are not familiar with this process. You've talked about the source of your information. You're deriving your information from the income and expense requests that you make of the mall management each year, is that correct?
Yes, so we send every year, we send the income and expense questionnaires to property owners. Specifically for the St. Vital Mall or any other mall, we use whatever they report back.
And that includes, what they're reporting back includes the rents. And so they report back rents for each and every one of the unit in the mall?
No, they don't provide information for all of them. I do believe that the special agreement, however it is written, those aren't reported. That's why with our subject lease information, it's reported as 0 because the mall did not report back what the rent was.
So they, in those cases, they provide nothing for those units. It's only the ones that don't have as special agreements as you're referring to them. What's the percentage of ones that they do give you information on versus ones that they don't?
It's difficult to say. Surprisingly, there was quite a few that didn't report a rent, but the ones that they do look like they are net rents. So potentially, if they're not reporting a net rent, they're not. I'm not. I didn't research beyond that.
Okay. And so, I mean, you don't pursue this because you would not regard those as net rents anyway, and what you only want to use is net rents, is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
From my understanding, yes.
You didn't really address the occupancy costs. Tell me, what is the source of that information?
They're set occupancy costs for 2025. So it will depend on they will change based on the square footage, but ultimately it is based on $2.50 roughly, however it's calculated. But they are set amounts.
The heat, electricity, water, air conditioning amounts are derived individually for units, or are they just general for the whole mall?
They're in general for the whole mall, they're all model driven occupancy costs. The model will automatically do it.
So those rates are set
yes,
by the computerized system on the basis of the data for the whole mall. And then those rates are applied to the individual area of each unit, is that correct?
Yeah, if I'm understanding your question, yes.
Okay. All right, that's all my questions. Ms. Squires, could we have your information, please?
Yeah, can I just start by, these weren't questions for her, but I did want to clarify a couple things that were said but I didn't want to interrupt. In 2018, it was not specialty leasing in there. In 2018, it was time maternity, so it would have been a long-term lease. Net zero, I don't know why it's net zero, maybe they didn't, I don't know, but that was not a specialty. So what specialty lease means, it doesn't mean that it's a percentage driven. It means that where they can't fill it with like a time maternity or a big chain store, they'll allow specialty to go in so that they don't have empty stores. It's not percentage driven, it is a lease agreement for a year. And it may be a little bit, you know, it is less than like a large chain would pay. But it is still an agreement, and if they had the large chains to put in there, they would have them in there. So anyway, and I'm pretty sure, not positive, but I'm almost positive, any tenant that's in the mall, including the long-term leases, also have a percentage. And what that means is, let's say for even numbers, your rent is $100,000. If you do over a certain amount, say your percentage rent again is 10%, after your break point, you're gonna pay that percentage. So I have a lease with a set amount, but the mall wants to make sure, for example, they always get at least 10% of your sales. So if I pass my break point, then I pay more. But it's not percentage driven as far as I only pay a percentage based on my occupancy. So I just want to clarify those things. Okay. So for the proof that, or the evidence that I sent, it's a little bit hard for me because I don't have access to past years, although I've been here, done this, so I do have some things saved from last time. Because we're just told, when I started doing this, I was always told, it's not what it's worth now, it's what somebody paid in the year that it's assessed at, which is now 2023, and I was in the unit in 2023. So in 2021, the first proof that I sent, or the first evidence, was the appeal that I did in 2021. If you can see that, we appealed and they granted it based, do you guys all see that? Based on what I paid that year. Now 2021 we know was a very hard year. We were just sort of coming back from COVID. So the agreement that I had was very different back then. In that case, it was a percentage driven number, because if I wasn't in there, they definitely wouldn't have had anybody else in there. So the first piece of evidence is the assessment that I received for 2021. 2 doors down from me, if you look on the city's assessment, there's nothing. There's $0, so that's 2 doors down for me. And in 2023, which is the year that we're basing it on, it was empty. Unit 12, also straight beside me, no assessment at all, on the city's website. 2023, it was empty. Unit 10 on the other side of me, it's $0 right now, but in 2023, it did have a tenant. They're actually the next one on your docket. And in 2023, I don't have the number, I should have asked them, but it was assessed at approximately $35,000 total. I didn't break it down, I'm sorry, by the running costs. I just took the total. It was about a $35,000. And then directly across from me, which is a great example because we're virtually the same size. So unit 103 directly across in 2021 was assessed at $32,580. So that was in 2023, but based on 2021. The 6th item that I provided is the floor plan. I apologize, I actually have since received a much more clear one that I could send you, but the little red box shows where I'm located in the mall. Which, except for the one which is Quilts Etc., which is a big, you know, a big tenant. in that big visible corner. None of the other comparables that were given are remotely close to me in the mall, which location does matter and it does affect the rents in the mall for sure. Number 7, that's a screenshot for the actual floor plan in 2023. I reached out to the manager of the mall as well to find out what the occupancy of the mall was in 2023, and the vacancy rate was just shy of 10%. My current assessment of ARV is at 93,780. And then I'd like to, my last piece, I'm not going to say any numbers because technically when we all sign our lease, we're not supposed to share, and all 3 of us on your docket, the first 4 technically, are in the same mall, so we're not supposed to share, but that last slide is what I actually paid in 2023. Which, again, part of the problem with specialty leasing is if they have a long-term tenant to fill the space at a higher rate, they only have to give us, some of us 30 days, some of us 60 days notice. That's how a specialty lease agreement works. So if they could get more in my space, they would be getting more in my space. Either side of me, except for maybe pop-ups of Christmas, at Christmas, have been empty. So I don't think that I should be assessed at a number that they're not reasonably going to be able to get in that space. And location does matter. We know that the Bay Wing is the least busy wing of them all, which is why I'm still able to be there. And I think that's it.
Ms. Assessor, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Just a couple, thank you. So regarding your last page about the rents, so am I understanding correctly that in 2023 that you had 4 different amounts?
Okay, so not all of us negotiate this way. It's kind of how I talked about that break point, and over a certain break point, I pay a percentage rent. So because of that, and my only real month of potentially reaching the break point is December, that's why we've done it like that.
Okay, so
Because otherwise I could pay 10% in December and 40% of my sales in January. Does that make sense?
right, so then for your last page, it's your rent and including any percentage?
Yeah, all of it.
Okay,
That's why I didn't just send you the lease, plus it's like probably 20 pages that you don't need to see. I just asked them for the statement of account, so that'll show you. So for example, in January 2023, if December I had gone over my break point, I would have paid more in January, in this case, January, February renter.
right,
Yeah.
okay, those are my questions, thank you.
Mr. Mann, do you have questions?
Just with respect to the last page, Ms. Squires,
Yeah.
you brought up the January 2023 rent, and just so that I'm clear, you are on a lease that has a base rent plus a percentage if you get past your break point. Is that fair to say?
Correct. And you know what? Maybe I should have also asked them for the January 2024. I did not pay a percentage rent because, as you can see, my rent is a lot higher in December. So I would have had to sell a lot more in December to owe in January. I did not owe a percentage rent, but I was always told it's based on April 2023. So I just sort of took the year so that you didn't have just April 2023.
Right, and the date is December 1st, 2023. It's the first of the month that the rent is payable.
Correct.
So that first of the month payment is based on the previous month's break point, or are you anticipating that you're
No,
gonna get
so
the
you
break point?
pay December 1st, I would pay the rent and the agreement. And if I went over my break point, I believe it's by the 5th or the 10th of the next month. I've never owed it. I have to submit by the 5th, so it must be due on the 10th. I would have to pay anything past my break point.
Okay, so these charges that you have listed here, that includes your base rent and your breakpoint rent? Or is it just your
This
base?
is the total rent that I paid for all of 2023. The total rent. That's why I asked for a statement of account instead of just the lease, because then that wouldn't show you if there was a percentage. I never passed my break point. So every month I paid more than what would have been 10% of my sales.
So you never hit your
Only
break.
pay extra if you pass your break point. So if my rent, say that month was $1,000, if I sold $11,000, my break point was 10,000 because 10% of 1,000.
Yes. Oh, I understand how the math
Yeah,
works.
okay.
I'm just looking at the base rents. You indicated that in some of your testimony that you had not hit your break point in many of the months, but the numbers fluctuate between the
Because
low.
that's
well-
how we set up the lease. That's how we set up the lease. So those were my base rents every month, but they allowed me to put a higher base rent in December. Because otherwise, if they made it the same amount every month, then like I said, in January, I might be paying 50% of my sales in rent. They just do it so that they're still getting their 10%, but they're not, I don't know how, like it's not. Does that make sense?
I think I understand what you're trying to
Yeah,
say.
because in December is my biggest month. It's really the only real huge difference in fluctuation of sales. So otherwise I'd be always paying 10% of those sales, but I end up in the other months where, I might only sell $10,000. If my rent was $2,500 or $3,000, I'm paying a really high.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I don't have anything. I don't have anything else.
Ms. Billinghurst, do you have questions?
Mr. Mann had, I guess, asked the question, and yeah, I think I'm satisfied with the answer I heard. Thank you.
So in this last page, you've got the January through December rents for 2023.
Yeah.
How different was this than 2022?
My agreement in 2022, gosh. I mean, it's gone up. I don't remember the exact. I can tell you though that I just signed a new agreement starting February, and the difference was $2,000 a year over last year. So it wasn't a lot. Sorry, I don't remember.
For $2,000 in total for the year increase?
Right.
Just
That's
bear
from-
with me while I make some notes here.
Yeah.
And is the new lease then done in February every year?
That's when my renewal is.
Your renewal is in February. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you very much. So, does anybody want to have a summary of their information? Either side?
I can do a quick one, thank you. Just to clarify, I understand that with the base rent and the percentage, I don't mean as in that. I just mean that because it's not the true net lease like the malls generally provide, that it's hard to have for the subject lease, and that we're basing it on the market of what the mall could generate regardless of the occupant. So we feel that the annual rental value of $93,780 is fair. Our annual rental values are not always necessarily what the rent is being paid. But I understand location and the comparables are not all in the same area, but yes, thank you.
I think I'd just like to summarize and point out again that they put us where they can't fill. If they can get a higher rent, like the $93,000 a year, they literally give us 30 to 60 days notice, doesn't matter when it is. We know that can happen because of our agreements, but if they could get more, they would get more and they can't. There's one other thing I want to say, but anyways, yeah, I think that if they could get more, they would get more, and they've had to relocate others because of, you know, they're close to the food court, it's a higher traffic, and so they've had to move to other places, but where you are in the mall does determine how much rent you pay.
Okay, well, thank you very much for this. Thank you for appearing today. We will provide you with an answer by mail as soon as we can. So with that, you can go if you wish, and we will move on to item 2 on our docket.
All right,
Item number 2 is also at 1225 St. Mary's Road, and it is Unit 58. Do we have an applicant present?
yes, we have the applicants on Zoom.
Okay, if you could have that person affirmed.
Yes, Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
I'm Paul and my wife.
Julie Swear.
Yeah, I'll just affirm each of you at once, at a time. So, Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Paul Swear.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Applicant, please state your full name.
Julie Swear.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Assessor, could you proceed when you are ready?
Because there's 2, do you want me to start with the 2023 one?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, the 2025 is the one that comes first on the docket. I don't know if that, just wanted to note that.
Is it okay to do 2023 just chronologically? Is that okay?
I'm not thinking of a reason why we need to do it in reverse order, despite the way it is on the docket. But Ms. Billinghurst, Mr. Mann, are you aware of a reason why we should stick with 2025 first?
No, I tend to think that chronologically makes a little bit more sense, at least from my linear way of thinking. But I can do them either way is convenient.
Ms. Billinghurst?
I don't see a reason why we cannot do it in that order.
In chronological order, you mean?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's do them that way then. 2023 first.
Okay, thank you. File number 24-4441. Rule year is 2023. The address 58-1225 St. Mary's in St. Patel. Business assessment ID is 56596. Business name Stuffy Riders. For this one, the total annual rental value is 60,720 for 1,546 square feet. Just to note, I'll continue with my presentation, but this is the brief is created based on the business assessment ID and not necessarily the premise that it was in. So it'll sound a little confusing, but just bear with me and I'll get there. So for this one, the premise ID is 8232 unit 58, 1,546 square feet, base ARV of 56,862, base ARV per square foot $36.78, with the occupancy costs of 3,865 for the total annual rental value of 60,720. Again, there's no reported rent. The rent comparables that I picked are also still within the mall. They range from $34 to $75 and 1,019 square feet to 1,981 square feet. But if you go to my pages 2 to 5 or 6 is if we appealed it to the municipal board.
Could you pause for just a second, please?
Yes.
Everyone wanted.
Okay, sorry, I'm just missing where we are on the sheets that have been provided here. Ms. Picotto?
Yeah.
In item number 2 that we're on, there are 3 items listed. There is the AT&T brief. Then there is applicant brief 1 and number 2.
Yeah, we're on item
We're on
3.
number 3.
So we're doing with 3. Okay, sorry. So then 3, we have the applicant brief, and then we have brief 2. Oh, sorry, no. I've got you. Okay, I was sort of missing the fact that there were 2 of the applicant's briefs. Okay, carry on.
Okay, so on my page, I believe it's my page 4, it is the Board of Revision order. The original annual rental value was 120,360 and revised 33,000. The 33,000 is what we're appealing to the municipal board. That was when they were in unit 10, and that was based on 2,312 square feet at $49.55 for.
Okay, pardon another interruption. You're giving us this old information, why? Or about past history, why?
So because they're appealing the supplemental as far as I know, and then the way that the brief looks, it's based on their current unit and not the one that they were occupying in 2023, from my understanding.
So I'm sorry, but how does that bear on what we were looking at for the current role based on April 1st, 23?
Because from my understanding is that they're appealing the supplemental for the 33,000. But the way that the brief looks is that it's 60,000.
Your brief or their brief?
My brief, I'm talking about my brief. On my
Yeah.
brief, it is based on the current unit that they're occupying.
Yes.
Because when you run the brief, it's based on the business assessment ID, not necessarily the unit. So they're in a new unit currently at the time in 2023, and for their supplemental, they were in a separate unit.
Okay,
So,
but we're not, I don't think we are concerned about the supplemental or the fact that previous one is being appealed forward. We're looking at what's before us for this role.
I believe they appealed for 2023 and 2025, the supplemental for 2023, and then the assessment for 2025.
Is it okay if I interject or?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was a little confused as well why this was included. Just to clarify, we already previously appealed our previous unit number about 18 months ago, which was unit 58, which the assessors included here. I thought that was more or less said or done, but I understand the assessment office appealed the appeal. Today, we are appealing our current location, which we moved in the fall of 2023, to kind of go along with what the previous presenter said. We more or less got kicked out of unit 10 because they could find a higher rent. So we're appealing our unit 58 today for 2023.
And
2025?
And 2025, yeah, that's the next docket, right?
okay.
So I'm not really sure why this is included myself. I'm a little confused too, but
Ms. Billinghurst, is this clear to you?
No,
All right, well, that's sort of 2 out of 3. Ian, in your case?
If I can try to distill what I understand, the appeal that is at number 2 is based on the roll year of 2023 and is the supplemental, which reflects Stuffy Riders, if I can refer to it that way, in Unit 58, the assessment that came after they moved from the previous location, which was the subject of the municipal board appeal. The item appearing at number 3 is the roll year 2025 appeal. Is that, have I got that straight?
I think it's flip. I think
We're gonna go flipped.
because the number 3 was a 2023. Docket number 2 is a 2025.
So I've got a bunch open here. I'll go back. The number,
It doesn't say at number 2 that it's a SUP. It just is referring to the 2025 assessment for Unit 58. So both of them are making, this is a kind both of them are making reference to Unit 58.
right?
But you said that you didn't, sorry, they didn't move into Unit 58 until the fall of 2023.
Correct. But we still got the tax bill for that whole year, even though we were only there for 3 months. So we're appealing that figure that we were assessed at in Unit 58 that we moved in the fall. Pardon me.
Okay, so for 2023, you're appealing the original assessment that was made, but then the city came along and did a supplementary business assessment. I'm addressing this now to the assessor. The city did a supplementary business assessment, and that is what we are dealing with currently?
The way that I'm understanding it now is that they were in the Unit 10 and then moved to Unit 58. And for 2023, I'm hoping I'm understanding correctly that they're appealing the 60,720 and the 2025 for 61,020.
Okay,
If
so
I'm understanding correctly, but we had them in 2 units, but we filed for municipal board at the previous location. But the rest of my presentation on my brief is based on their Unit 58.
okay, so the only reason why we wind up dealing with 2 years is because of a supplementary notice having been sent out. That supplementary must have been for the second unit and the value that would obtain for that second unit, correct? The one they moved into.
Yes, the 58. They
Okay,
were
so
in
which-
Unit 10, moved to 58, currently in Unit 58.
They're currently in 58. They moved into 58, and that is the supplementary for 2023 that we are dealing with currently, yes?
If I'm understanding correctly, yes, where the 2023 appeal is for 60,720.
Oh.
And that's supplementary?
Yes, for their new
But-
location, yes.
So we don't want to know really anything about an appeal to the municipal board
With
for
previous one, that's
for the
correct.
previous assessment. It's only the supplementary that we are interested in, and we're blind to the rest of it. And then
Okay.
we'll deal with 2025 eventually.
Right.
Okay, that's fair.
Can I just clarify, because the previous appeal, that information was for Unit 10, so it's a completely different unit.
Right.
Right. Okay,
Yes, different unit, same business, yes.
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
So let's deal with the supplementary assessment on the unit number 58.
Okay. So again, just continuing on. Unit 58, 1225 St. Mary's. We have the premise area of 1,546, base ARV of 56,862. The base ARV per square foot, $36.78. Occupancy costs at $3,865 for the total annual rental value of $60,720. The subject lease again is reported as 0 because it was not reported on the income and expense mailer. I have 3 rent comparables, again ranging from $34 to $75 and from 1,919 square feet, sorry, to 1,981 square feet. Thank you.
All right, then. Applicants, do you have questions about this information that was presented by the assessor?
We do, and thank you for mentioning the one question about why the other information was included, because I was confused. So I think that's kind of clarified. Some questions, and before we start, I want to thank everyone who's helped us with this process with the City of Winnipeg. There's been some amazing help we've gotten. This is a lot of stress for us. So first question I have for the assessor, is there a reason why we're under 1-year leases consistently since we've been in at 2025 St. Mary's? So I'm just wondering why for comparables, there's never any 1-year lease terms in the evidence presented.
That is a good question. I don't really have a good example for it. Generally for the malls, regardless of who's occupying, the mall is generated by the model of what the market rents could go for, regardless of who's occupying the unit.
Okay, I think I understand that. So what the rent could go for. So that kind of leads to my next question. Like the location right next door to us, which is slightly larger at 1841 square feet, they have not had consistent tenancy. I think currently the mall's just using it as a gift wrapping location, which is kind of cool. But so the question I have is there a reason why that's not factored into the ARV, specifically locations that aren't paying rent that are similar in location and size? Because certainly that would bring down the market value.
Are you referring to why those aren't used as comparables?
Either used as comparables, or I guess, is that factored into comparables?
The comparables are what's reported by property managers or owners, and it's based on net leases. So if they're not paying a net lease, then we wouldn't use it as a comparable.
Okay. So obviously, I mean, I guess this makes sense for everyone. The mall wouldn't include rent comparables if there's locations that aren't being rented out.
Right.
Because it would be 0. Okay. Nope.
Yes.
Do you have any questions, Julie?
No.
I think the only other question I have is when an appeal has been filed and granted for a reduction, are those ever included in the assessment evidence or factored in, I should say?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
Yeah, so like, for example, this is our second time doing this. I think the previous presenter said she's done it a number of times. So the question I have is, for the ARV for the mall, this is to the assessor I'm asking, if there's been a reduction in the assessed value, is that factored into the ARVs as well?
Do you mean for future ones, if it's taken?
Yeah, future, when that's being presented as evidence by the assessor.
If I'm understanding, if it's appealed and the value is decreased,
right,
or board decreased, or a recommendation.
Yeah.
As far as I understand, the model wouldn't necessarily use that as a comparable, but it could use any reductions depending on what was changed. If it's a characteristic that we had to change in order to reduce the value, then that would go forward for the model to reflect that for the next cycle. But for reductions in general, it depends on the property, it depends on what the change was, but it will take it into consideration to a certain extent. Again, it's based on market evidence. If it feels like it isn't based on market models, then we wouldn't necessarily use that for future, because it's not a good reflection of what the market is. Makes
Oh,
sense.
I guess
If I'm
I thought it
understanding
would be,
what
but okay. I thought it would be, but so is it incumbent upon the mall when an assessor is asking for proof or evidence of comparables, is it the mall that chooses not to include a specialty or one year leases to the assessor? Is that the mall's decision, or?
Are you referring to when we get the income and expense questionnaires?
Yeah, so like for example, for your evidence you have for 2023, I think you have the 3 locations indicated. Does the mall not provide, comparables for 1 year leases, specialty leases, kiosks? Is this all you get, or is this just what you choose to present?
Well, there's different reasons why we'll choose what comparables that we'll choose, but for
Okay.
the property owners or managers that are supplying the information, like I said, I'm pretty sure for all 3 of the ones in St. Vital today, the mall reported them as 0. As I'm understanding, because it's a special type of agreement, not a net lease. So there are other ones in the mall as well that are not reporting a net lease. So we can't use them as a comparable. It's no rental information.
Okay. I think that's all we have. Thank you.
Ms.
Thank you.
Billinghurst, do you have questions?
No, I think they've all been asked here.
Mr. Mann?
Just for my own clarification, Ms. Flood, with respect to the business assessment report, we have the business ID number our business assessment ID number, and the subject lease information. You've got the business assessment ID number recreated there at 56596. The premise ID at 8232, is that related to the business assessment ID, or is that related to the physical location? And the reason I ask is because you've got a lease start date of July 1st, 2018, and it would appear that this unit was not occupied by this business in 2018. So is the business assessment ID and the premise ID linked, or are they separate?
The 56596 will always be linked to Stuffy Riders unless they change their operating name. The
Right.
premise ID 8232 will always stick with unit 58 unless we change unit 58. So 8232, sorry, is just the unit number. So the lease start date, it isn't relevant to Stuffy Riders. I think that's just, it was an old one, but it's just saying that it couldn't find a subject lease for that particular unit.
Okay, so that would be consistent with a month-to-month or a 1-year lease or a short-term lease.
Whatever, if there is a subject lease that was reported, it would generate one, but because there wasn't one reported, hence the 0 rent per square foot, then it wouldn't have one reported. But the premise ID is relevant to just the unit itself.
Okay, thank you. That does clear it up. I don't have anything further. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Question similar to the one that I asked in the first application. So you are essentially at the mercy of what the property owner provides you in the annual income and expense request. And in this case, they will show as 0 rent for any unit that has a lease that has been sort of called special, meaning that they are short term. There may be percentage applied, may not. These are not being included in any of the data. Therefore, the modeling, the computer modeling that is done by assessment and taxation is based on all the other long-term, perhaps, leases that are not subject to the same qualifications as this type that we've dealt with in this unit or in the previous application. Does that not essentially skew the modeling that is done because it overrates the amount of rental value coming out of the mall.
I mean, in a sense, I suppose, yes, it, obviously, if we have more information, it would be, we could provide better model rents, I suppose. But with the malls, they do fluctuate, and again, I understand that location matters and where it is within the mall. But again, it's hard, even if it would be difficult as if they are reporting these special type rental agreements within the owners, that it wouldn't be a good representation either with them, because they wouldn't be true net rents either. So with the model, when we're including it for the analysis, it's based on a net rent, not necessarily what their gross rent is or their base rent, and if there is potentially any percentage beyond that.
Okay, for the sake of everybody, could you define net rent and gross rent?
Net rent is including when they have the recoveries for like maintenance, property taxes. The tenant is paying them versus it's a gross rent where everything is included and paid to the owner, the landlord, whoever.
Okay. Are you aware of any guidance that would be emanating from municipal board decisions that would tell us anything about whether modeled assessments, including rents, should be used or should actuals be used?
For that note, I'm unaware.
Okay. Are you aware of anything in the Municipal Assessment Act that would guide us about the comparability of business assessments and the comparability of the types of properties that they are applied to?
What exactly do you mean? Sorry?
I mean, is there anything in the Municipal Assessment Act that provides guidance on whether or in what way should business assessments be comparable to other business assessments?
In the way that you're asking, I'm not sure, but to go back to your question about, is it fair for what's paid? Again, the annual rental value it's based on market evidence and not necessarily what their rent is that's paid.
Okay. Is there anything in case law, previous court cases, that would tell us how comparable the business assessments must be one property to another?
At this point, I'm unaware.
Okay. Okay, that's all my questions. So now we will turn to the applicant. Could you provide us with your information, please?
Certainly. So I know we have a fair bit included with the evidence, including some pictures. I'm not sure how many numerical figures you want us to provide, but I think suffice to say, we are paying substantially less than the ARV, both on a percentage basis and on a square footage basis. We're essentially paying they don't call it a lease agreement, they call it a license fee, but it's basically a lease agreement. So we're paying approximately, based on their license fee, 51% of ARV before break point is factored in. And that is about $20.18 a square foot. As alluded to earlier, we have been on a year lease since we've been in St. Vital Center, because they were able to find a tenant that was able to pay more than we were in our previous location. That's why we essentially got moved out. to where we are now. And we had to be in a kiosk for approximately 1 month before this location was available. I think one thing I do want to emphasize, and I think it kind of goes to some of the questioning you had, sir, is I totally get market value, but the thing that really doesn't make sense to me is using 2023, because that's the docket we're on right now. When the mall had an occupancy rate where there was approximately just under, I believe, 10% vacancy, I don't understand why that's not factored into market value. Personally, I don't get it, and I'm not sure if there is an answer to that question, because obviously, if there's no one in a space, the market value is zero for that space, right? Like, if I'm understanding correctly. So essentially, we're asking, similar to what we asked 18 months ago, we're asking if we could get the assessed value from the municipal board, what our actual value is, what we're paying, because it's way less than what we're being assessed at.
Yeah, and for 2023, let's see, yeah, we're right. We were in the kiosk for a month. We moved and everything. And again, just understanding how specialty leases work. I know the previous person before us mentioned it, just how it is different than what the market comparables that were given. It is different, and it's not giving the whole picture of market evidence if there's only select evidence that's being used, and it's kind of missing some of the facts there. So yeah.
And I'm sorry, maybe I should have asked this earlier to the assessor. Like, we were only in this space in 2023 for basically 3 months. So the question I have is, we're getting an ARV for the entire calendar year. Is that correct? Instead of a 3-month period?
The annual rental value is based on the annual rental value, but I believe that depending on how many months that it's occupied, it would be calculated for the amount of time that you're within. Like the annual rental value is based on if it is for the full year that you're there, but
Right.
would be calculated for how long that you're there for, in terms of if there's business taxes that are owing or any other notice that you receive. Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot of business taxes. I think that's all we have for 2023. I don't want to bleed into 2025 unless anyone has anything they want to add or question.
All right, then let's see. Ms. Assessor, do you have questions about this information that they've presented?
Yeah, it would probably be for both the 2023 and the 2025 that you have the percentage license fee at 15% above that your rent for roughly 27,500 for the year, if I'm understanding correctly. How many months did you pay? I know you said you were there for 3.
Yes.
months.
So is this calendar year 2022? Yeah, so for that year, so 2023, when we moved into this new space for Unit 58, we only had, December was the only month that we had above that break-even percentage.
Okay.
Did you want me to give the extra value in rent that I calculated, or?
If you have it, yeah.
Yeah, this is what I calculated. For December 2023, we paid an additional $512.86 of rent for that month.
Just that month.
Yeah, it's the only one in Unit 58 for 2023. We're above break even. Break point, pardon me.
Right, okay. Okay, I believe that was my only question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Mann,
No, my question was with respect to the break point and exceeding that amount. So that's been dealt with. Thank you. I don't have anything further.
Ms. Billinghurst?
Sorry, I was just making a note. No questions.
Okay, so am I right in understanding that you moved into Unit 58 for the final 3 months of 2023? Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Then let me turn to the assessor. So the supplementary amount that we are dealing with replaces the previous assessment, correct?
From the old location?
Yes, that's my question.
Yes, again, that was my confusion, where for the last 3 months, if they moved October 2023, that they're appealing for their supplemental of 60,720.
And so the supplementary, though, is not just for the amount for those 3 months. It is the annual amount based on the new facts for the final 3 months.
It's based on their annual rental value, so if we're putting them in effective October, their annual rental value would be that we don't know that when necessarily that they'll move out. Their lease agreement could be for a year, they could move out earlier, they could stay longer. But for the notice that they got for what is owed for those 3 months, I don't have that in front of me.
And so for 2023 then, are they being charged on the basis of the assessment of those last 3 months? Or is it a hybrid of the previous assessment for 9 months and the new assessment for 3 months?
No, as far as I know, it would be separate. It's for the new location only. The other location is separate.
But the assessment of the new location, is that as if they had been in that location for the full year? Or and like the rent that they were paying is attributed to every month of that year, despite the fact that it was only really for 3 months?
It's based on what it could be for the year, but again, what they would be owing for those 3 months within that time period, I don't have that in front of me.
Okay, and that goes back to the fact that these are modeled rents and not actuals, correct?
Yes, they're model driven.
And if I may add, because I know everyone is unbelievably busy, I should mention that October, it is in the lease. I don't know if anyone caught it. In October 2023, it was a rent-free period because of the move we had to do and the extra expense we had to put into the property. So actually, we paid really 2 months for 3 because we had a lot of extra expense in moving. I just want to mention that in case it wasn't caught in the lease.
Okay. Okay, that's all my questions. So that other than for summaries would conclude this item, but applicants, would you like to summarize?
Yeah. Again, I want to thank everyone for allowing us to do both presentations today because it is a lot of stress. I do want to mention, in terms of the usage of the space we have, I think the fact that we've been in a kiosk tells you that we really don't use a lot of space. So for example, in the pictures we provide in the evidence, you'll see that there's a back room or area. And really a lot of that space is unused. It's meant for storage, but also if we were to have, like, say, birthday parties. Ever since we moved in that space, we've only used it for birthday parties twice total. like from 2023 to today. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there as well, that even though we have 1,546 square feet of space, we're not actually truly using all that space consistently. And in pictures you see, like, there is a wall that's approximately halfway back. So like, that's why it might not be easy to tell from the pictures.
Okay. Ms. Assessor, do you wish a summary?
Not necessarily a summary, just an apology for the confusion earlier. But thank you.
No
Thank
problem.
you. Thank you.
All right, well then that concludes this matter on our docket. We will be deliberating at the end of the ones that we're dealing with today, making our decisions, and then you will be provided those in the mail as soon as we can get them to you. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
We will then move on to the 2025. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said for coming. We're going to deal with the 2025.
I was a little worried.
Yeah. I was booting you out the
Oh.
door already, wasn't I? They're still sitting there. Why are they
I
still
was like,
sitting there?
what?
My apologies. So then for 2025, Ms. Assessor, your information, please.
File number 24-4467, roll year 2025, address 58-1225 St. Mary's, business assessment ID 56596. Stuffy Riders, the total annual rental value of 61,020 cents, or total area of all premises is 1,546. The premise ID still is 8232. Premise area 1,546. The base ARV of 56,831. Base ARV per square foot $36.76, plus occupancy costs of 4,174 for the total of 61,020. Again, there was no reported lease agreement. For my rent comparables, they're all within St. Vital. Again, they range from $34 to $95. Some are older. I tried to, again, depending on the mall, it is hard to find within the area and within more recent leases. But they range from 2015 to 2022. And again, just to confirm, the total value of 61,020. Thank you.
Just a second, please. Okay, applicants, you have questions?
No, I think they were all answered in the previous session. Thank you.
Ms. Billinghurst, questions?
No questions.
Mr. Mann?
No, and I don't have any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And neither do I. So we will move on then to the applicant's information. Could we have that, please?
Certainly. So we provided that the newest lease we have, because we understand this is for 2025 upcoming. So you'll note in the lease that the major change is the break point percentage has increased in monetary value, but decreased in percentage. And all that to say that the break point is at 10% of 30,000 for revenue. We've never hit 30,000 ever. So I'm not sure for the evidence today. I mean, we presented what we had, but we're assuming we're using our newest lease going forward. Is that correct, panel? Or do you want us to use the lease that went up to and including the fall of 2024?
Well, what we are dealing with is the current, the assessment that is for 2025.
Okay.
And so when was your When was your lease signed?
So our the newest lease was October 1st of 2024 for 1 year. So it goes into majority of 2025.
Hmm. Hmm. Ms. Picotto, could we take a short recess, please?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you very much. We have been in recess. We are now back. We were applicants. You were talking about the current lease. What I want to make you aware of is that the way assessments work is April 1st, 2023 is the current reference date. That means that we will be dealing with and must deal with, according to the legislation and court cases, the economic circumstances on April 1st, 2023. So that would be leases that were in place at that time. But for the physical circumstances, it is the current physical circumstances. So take this as a bit of an example. Say your place burnt down this year. You can't very well be assessed for it. It has to be altered because of the change in the physical circumstances of the property. But that applies to all of the essentially physical circumstances of a property. They have to be taken into account in this assessment, but the economic circumstances must be only those leading up to and including April 1st, 2023. So we don't deal with leases that are post-reference date. That's the term that is used, is post-reference date. For the sake of the 2025 business assessment, it has to be the lease that was in place at April 1st, 2023. Is that clear?
For the 2025 assessment, do you mean April 1st, 2024?
No, 2023. You see, the way assessments work is the roll comes out for the next year. So the roll for 2025 came out in May, June of 2024.
Right.
The assessor, of course, needs time in order to do all the calculations to have that roll ready in the spring of 2024. So the reference date that is set is April 1st, 2023.
Right.
And that for every reassessment, it moves forward sort of in lockstep.
Right.
So that is the date that is the real marker for the economic information that either the assessor uses or the applicant can use or we use. So it's got to be what is in place at April 1st, 2023.
Okay.
So that's what we would want to hear about for the 2025 roll.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When I was talking with I think it was the Board of Revision, they mentioned similar to what you said, that there's a general assessment that takes place every 2 years. And so they indicated that the 2023 would effectively impact our 2024 assessment so that we didn't have to appeal our 2024 because 2023 covered 2024. But that because 2025 is upcoming, it would be for 2 years. So I think what you said makes sense. So to summarize, are you saying that the lease we provided that we signed for October 1st, 2024, we should not be alluding to?
Correct.
Okay. So, okay. I won't do that then. Okay, that kind of changed. Well, I think honestly, we've already presented most of the information. The only caveat being, yeah, so like in 2024, we had some additional months of breakpoint percentage under the previous lease. I don't know if there were 6 months.
Well, that would be after April 1st, 2023.
Okay. So I guess if I'm hearing you correctly, I think you have all the information you require then?
I think so.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
All right. Ms. Assessor, do you have questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Mann?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Ms. Billinghurst?
No questions.
Okay, then that concludes this matter. So we have dealt with both of yours. Thank you very much for coming. And as I said earlier, we will deliver to you our order as quickly as we can via mail.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Have a very amazing holiday season, everyone.
Same to you.
You
We'll
too.
see you. Thank you. Over and out.
So we are moving on then to item number 4 on the agenda. Also at 1225 St. Mary's Road, and in this case, Unit 103.
Yep, we have the applicant here in person.
All right, could we have that person sworn in?
Yes, Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Peter Fair.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
All right, Ms. Assessor, could we have your information, please?
Thank you. File number 24-4471, roll year 2025, address unit 103 1225 St. Mary's, business assessment ID 56347, business name Love Local, total annual rent value 93,420, total area 1,833, premise ID 8277, again, unit 103 1225 St. Mary's Road, premise area 1,833, base ARV of 88,479, base ARV per square foot $48.27, plus occupancy costs of 4,949 for the total of 93,420. Again, no subject lease information. It wasn't reported on the income and expense mailer. I do have 4 comparables. They are all located within the mall, and they range from $47 to $105. 3 of them are newer leases. That's it. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Applicant, do you have questions of the assessor about this information?
No, I think I'm good.
Mr. Mann?
Just to ensure that the record reflects what's gone on already, Madam Assessor, this is is the Love Local, this 103 unit, is this a net lease, or are you aware if it's one of the special licensing or percentage leases?
Again, I believe it is another one that will just say it's a special type where it wasn't reported as a net lease, or there wasn't even a rent reported on the income and expense mailer.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Ms. Billinghurst?
No questions.
And I have no questions. So, Mr. Applicant, could we have your information, please?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairperson. And I feel like the previous applicants did a great job of already presenting evidence, and so some of this might be a little bit repetitive. I'll go through it anyway. And one thing I just want to mention too before I start with some of the evidence is that all of us that we're presenting today are small businesses, and yeah, so we feel that because we are small businesses, that the ARV should be underneath that threshold of the small business amount, which is around the 45,000 mark. So we feel we qualify for that, and so that's just one kind of piece of information I want to share as well. And then, yeah, some of the evidence, I just showed a couple of the units that are right around us that either had no information or are empty units. So number 7 had no info and possibly empty, and then number 9 was empty, and number 12 there's no assessment. And then we have number 11 across from us. They were assessed at around 17,000 on the last round, and then number 10 as well was around 35,000. So it's kind of just shows that area of what some of the assessments were. And again, too, in 2023, we were present in that unit, and we feel too, if the mall could get higher rent in that unit, they would have, but they obviously didn't, because the way our leases are structured, like previous applicants said, that they only need to give us 30 or 60 days notice to kick us out, and that never happened. So to me, that shows that they couldn't get a higher rent than what we paid. And so therefore the value of that property right now shouldn't be assessed, or isn't what we were assessed at. And then 2, we're not supposed to share our rents exactly, but you'll see in one of the evidence my statement of account from the property, where it shows the actual the lease paid, including my breakpoint percentages and the base rent. And what I was assessed at, my assessment last time was right around the mark of what my actual paid amount is, which you can see in the evidence there. And so we feel our assessment should be back at that actual amount. And 2, I think, as was previously stated too, that in the modeling, all of our specialty leases are not reported through the income and request, whatever that document was called. And so it's not a true comparison for these national big leases that happen, and for us that are specialty, they're not reported, so you can't really even compare them, we feel like. So I think that's all I have.
All right. Ms. Assessor, could we have your questions, please?
Thank you. Just a couple. For the license agreement that you provided, just to clarify that it's your 2024.
Yes, I did notice that was 2024. We were looking at 2023. So the statement of accounts is 2023, and then the lease was 2024.
Right,
So
okay.
sorry
Just,
about that.
no, that's okay. Just to clarify. And then for your statement of account, I see that it is including your percentage.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Ms. Billinghurst, questions?
No questions.
Mr. Mann?
No, I'm just adding up the 2023 total rent payable. The amount I have, sir, is $39,292. Does that sound accurate to you for the rent that you would have paid as of January of 2023?
That does sound about right, yeah.
And in addition to the rent or the statement of account that was provided to you by BGO, is there any additional payments required for property taxes, licensing fees, any other costs incurred?
No, that's all, those amounts are all inclusive.
Okay, thank you. Then I don't have anything further. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I have no questions. Okay, so that deals with this one in fairly short order. Thank you very much. We will be doing our deliberation following this hearing and providing you with an answer in the form of an order as quickly as we can.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So that brings us then to item number 6 on the docket, which is 1485 Portage Avenue, Unit 316A.
We do not have an applicant present for this item.
We do not have an applicant present.
No.
Okay. In that case, we will recess in order to determine what we were going to do. Okay, thank you very much. All right, we have recessed in order to deliberate whether we will hear this in the absence of the applicant, which we are directed to determine what we would do by the Municipal Assessment Act. And we have decided that, yes, we will hear the item in the absence of the applicant, which means that we will turn to the assessor and get the assessor's information. So if we could proceed with that, please.
Okay, thank you. File number 24-4459. Roll year 2025, address is 0316A 1485 Portage Avenue in Polo Park. Business assessment ID 56598. Business name Steel and Ink. Total annual rent value of 106,740 based on 1,236 square feet. Premise ID 274582, again 0316A 1485 Portage Avenue. Premise area 1,236, base ARV 103,404, base ARV per square foot $83.66 plus occupancy costs of 3,337 for a total of 106,740. For this one, there was a subject lease provided for April 1st, 2022, 5 years, 2 months at 1,236 at $51.50. I do have 5 comparables, all within Polo Park and all within the general vicinity of the tenant. Ranges from $35 to $165. And area ranges from 1,150 square feet to 3,671 square feet. Thank you.
Ms. Billinghurst, questions?
No questions.
Mr. Mann?
No, I think everything's covered. Thank you.
Okay. A simple question. Where is this? What's 1485 Portage Avenue?
It's Polo Park.
That's Polo Park. Okay. And the reported rent, 5150. Your comps have a very wide range.
Yes.
And you're using 8366.
Yes, model driven rent is 8366. Yes.
Okay. That's all my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes this item on the agenda then. And that actually concludes our hearing. We are now adjourned. Thank you very much for coming and providing us with this information. As with everybody else, we'll be letting you know as quickly as possible what the answers are as a result of our deliberation.
Very much. Have a good day, everyone. Happy holidays.
You
Thank
too.
Have a great one.